BJ.
So I spent 25 and a half years, fought 2 wars on the front lines for this country. And I'm offering myself for the next 3 years or however long you'll have me in service of my university in an act of atonement for my failure to pay attention to its governance in the years in which, since I've been a member of the alumni. I'm a bit of an outsider. I'm first to admit that. I'm the only candidate sitting here who doesn't have any kind of connection to a member of the Board of Trustees currently, or even a member of the Penn Staters Responsible Stewardship Selection Committee. I recognize I'm a bit of an outsider, but I think that's an advantage. I think that gives me an opportunity to leverage fresh eyes and probing questions to ask questions and move forward on things that need to be addressed. Fundamentally, I think the most important thing, regardless of who is elected, is we have to address the root cause of our problems. It's not enough, no matter how gripping the symptoms are, it's the root causes that must be addressed. And that means fixing our governance. And some of that must be done in Harrisburg, but a lot of it can be done within the Board of Trustees. In 2006, I was dropped in the city of Ramadi in Anbar province in Iraq, and we were told at the time that Anbar was a lost cause, hunker down, live to the end of the deployment, and get home. I'm proud to say I was a leader in a small group of men who turned that province around and ultimately led to the success of the surge, regardless of how Iraq ultimately turns out. I know that things that people think are impossible are quite doable, and I want to be part of doing that, if not as a member of the Board of Trustees, then as a continuing member of Penn Staters for Responsible Stewardship. I thank you for this opportunity, and again, I wholeheartedly believe that the people that are up here would all make fine and good candidates, are members of the Board of Trustees, and would be a step forward from what we currently suffer under.
In addition to your willingness to run for the Board of Trustees, what have you done since November 2011 to advocate for Penn State?
I'd like to start by saying thank you to each of the members that are here today, both in the audience and up here on the panel. I'm comfortable with the fact that if any of us make it onto the board, it's an improvement, and good things will come of that. And I'd like to thank Penn Staters for Responsible Stewardship for hosting this event and for the work they put in over these past nearly 3 years now to try to move this university in the direction it needs to be going forward. In November 2011 I was in my final 30 days of my 25-and-a-half-year career as a United States Army officer. And one of the things I learned as a soldier is to move towards the sound of the guns. And what I saw was an institution that I'm deeply passionate about that has shaped 3 generations of my family under assault. And my natural response was to march to the sound of the guns. But I also understood, I was humbled by the fact how little attention I had paid to my university during the time in which I was serving my country. And I thought it would be rash and emotional for me to respond quickly without achieving some level of understanding. So, although the other members here have done conspicuous things to help move forward on the agenda that we want for this university in the past 2 years, I spent that time understanding, reading, participating at the local level within my individual spheres of influence, but not making some of the contributions that this group has made, and I acknowledge that. I am, however, at the point in understanding in which I feel very comfortable of leading the attack, or at least joining in to assist others as we move forward together.
What specific experiences have you had in reforming a board and/or changing a bad governance situation? BJ.
So one of the great misconceptions you may have about your military out there is that this idea that there's a solitary individual who's a commander or a general and they have ultimate authority. That is true in certain carefully bounded circumstances within the military. But much to my surprise and my own experience, what I've found is that the military does a lot of corporate governance that takes the form that is not exactly the same as a board, but is similar to a board in the sense that you have a diverse group of stakeholders representing different interests that have difficulty coming together and achieving a common understanding or moving forward together to advance the larger enterprise. So although I don't have any direct relationships with boards, saving one job interview I had with the board, I do have considerable experience working as a staff officer supporting high-level governance within the Department of Defense, both at the joint, so amongst the services, and within the United States Army. I spent from 2007 to 2010, I was the lead planner and policy maker colonel at the United States Army's largest and most complex command. And I was a special advisor to our commanding general, and I was responsible for helping him advance an enterprise initiative that was looked to reform the high-level governance of the United States Army. And that was all about the same type of skills that would relate to working with the board. It's about building coalitions. It's about understanding and cultivating relationships with people within that are stakeholders. Listening to them, understanding that some will be ultimately intransigent, some are looking for a good, persuasive argument that might move them, and others are looking for leadership and other things. And I think that the experiences I've had in the military, and I've continued that kind of work in my civilian consulting career, give me a toolbox that I can use in working within a board in this context.
Bob, why are you seeking the endorsement of PS4RS? And if you were one of the final 3 endorsees, will you support the other 2 candidates? Vijay.
I want PS4S's endorsement because they stand where I stand, because they care about you, the community, at Penn Staters for Responsible Citizenship, the people standing up here. We all have certain things that we agree on. There are probably 3 great passions in my life: my wife and daughter, the United States of America and its Army, and the third is Penn State. And, November of 2011 made me feel as if my world had been turned upside down. Everything that I knew that was right and good was under assault. And I think that's fundamentally the emotion that members of this group also feel. And they also the organization has done tremendous work in organizing the alumni that are cared and engaged to move forward so we can address these things. And in some respects, my candidacy is an act of atonement. I confess to my guilt. I voted for trustees based upon, once a year we get the ballot, and I'd go through it. Oh, that guy was an Army ROTC. He's already got my vote. That guy was, in my fraternity. I voted based upon affinity, I did not take seriously my responsibility as an alumni to put the right kind of people in governance at my university. My candidacy is an act of atonement for that. And this organization is the group that I think shares some of that feeling. So, and am I going to support the people that this organization endorses? Yes, whether I'm one of them or not, because I believe in what this organization is about. And I believe it's a positive force for good in our university and its governance.
Vijay, one of the biggest challenges for Alumni Board of Trustees members is convincing the board that they are not just a small radical group representing a fringe segment of the Penn State community. How would you address that sentiment, knowing that if you challenge the board directly, you may be marginalized or excluded from leadership positions?
Well, that's a false narrative, and I'm sure those who would like the status quo are quite happy to set that in motion and continue to promote it. In fact, perhaps even form other groups that might carry that narrative forward, but who knows? I am very troubled by those aspects of the standing orders that specifically gag the ability of trustees to pursue their responsibilities in terms of investigating, inquiring, conversing with members of the faculty, conversing with students and others to get information to them. The gag on the ability to express public dissent. How is it possible in the United States of America, where the ability to have a civil conversation about what you agree and do not agree on is a fundamental right? How is it possible that Penn State does not allow that in its Board of Trustees? That's wrong. That is fundamentally un-American. I've said, some people may have heard me talk about this, but to me, the way the board stifles dissent within it is akin to what we used to see in Soviet governance. The executive committee is nothing but the Politburo, and the rest of the members show up at party congress, salute, and move out. That's unacceptable to me. It is my intention, if I am fortunate enough to get a position on the board, to work to be part of the loyal opposition. You can be civil, you can adhere to your principles, and you can disagree, and you should have the right to express that disagreement and to pursue investigations and call witnesses and do all the other things that legislative oversight is meant to do. We have the power to make that change. The restrictions on it are within those portions of our governance documents, which are controlled by the board itself. So I'm glad that Senator Utachak's got a bill out there. I agree with Rudy. I think it's a half step. But we really need to look at all the governance documents and those that are within the realm of the board to control and fix those to enable a loyal opposition within the community.
What's your opinion of the trustees' participation in the NCAA lawsuit? And do you view it as conflicting with their duties as trustees? Thank you. BJ.
Yeah, these things are never as black and white as we want them to be, but fundamentally I feel that the lawsuit is a good thing if it allows us to get to the truth and expose the ugly reality, the extrajudicial punishment that the NCAA imposed upon us. It is very regrettable that the complete moral and structural bankruptcy of our governance put us in a situation where members of the Board of Trustees have to be a part of that lawsuit. That's regrettable. I wish that were not the case, but the board commissioned the free report. They accepted the punishment that the NCAA imposed based upon that report. I don't see a lot of good options left for a principled individual who believes that it's fundamentally flawed, but to be a party to a lawsuit to bring out the truth. And I hope it succeeds in doing that.
Thanks. BJ, you have the chance to meet with Dr. Barron in May. You were one of his first appointments. You have 2 minutes with him. What are you going to say?
First, Dr. Barron, I hope you're going to watch this DVD or streaming video or whatever it's available to you. I want you to watch this, and I want you to listen to the conversation that's going on around this table. You know, we have a fair amount of righteous indignation about the way our university has been treated in recent years. But I want you to understand, Dr. Barron, that you play a pivotal role in addressing the root cause of these problems we've had. And that is the over-centralization of power in the hands of the university president and in the executive committee of the Board of Trustees, and the acceptance of a laissez-faire, passive model of governance. That's unacceptable. If we don't fix that, all the rest of this is window dressing. We'll feel better about ourselves, but 20, 30 years from now, we could put our children and our grandchildren and future generations of Penn Staters in exactly the same position, because we allow tyranny to exist within our institution when tyranny is unacceptable in the United States and is antithetical to everything I know about democratic governance. Dr. Barron, please be part of the solution. Accept limits on your power. Push the board to be active in discharging its responsibility for stewardship and management of the university. Do not accept the title of Caesar without pushing back. Let's do this together. The board will define policy, the board will provide strategic direction, and you can focus on executing that in partnership with the faculty and the students. Let's work together on this and fix the fundamental problem together.
BJ, when and how should the university recognize the accomplishments of Joseph Vincent Paterno?
Immediately, first of all, for the when. Regrettably, probably in the interest of bringing together a divided community, we will need to probably execute some kind of truth and reconciliation process. You know, if the Africans and the whites of South Africa can get over apartheid by using a truth and reconciliation process, something infinitely more important than the struggles we've had, the members of this community can come together through a truth and reconciliation process, and an element of that needs to be finding a way that is acceptable to the entire community, or the majority of the community at least, to commemorate the contribution of Joseph Vincent Paterno and Sue Paterno to this university. My attitude is very clear about it. We need to do it immediately, but I'm practical enough to know that there are people who would not support that, and it would exacerbate as opposed to help moving forward as an organization together. So I think we need to do, like I said, a truth and reconciliation process. The next step to that is in finding a way that is appropriate to commemorate their contributions. And then I think the greatest way we commemorate his contributions is taking pride in success with honor. I mean, I described my bewilderment in the fall of 2011, and in large part of it was because I fundamentally believed that my university was the example of doing it right. And here was my own university's governance telling me that was not the case, that I was wrong. And the cognitive dissonance there just made my mind explode. How is this possible? We need to do it, but we will win in the long run by embracing success with honor and continuing to be, you know, the folks that do it right whether it's in the field of academics or athletics or whatever. But we need to do it as soon as possible.